The video. You're on a shooting range with inter alia Mr. Derek Hougaard, is that correct?
That's incorrect, my lady.
You and Mr. Hougaard are shooting shotguns?
I wasn't on any shooting range with Mr. Derek Hougaard, my lady.
Francois. Who was with you?
There were a group of people in our party, my lady.
Who stood next to you firing a gun?
Mr. Francois Hougaard.
Yeah, I got the name wrong. I apologize to you. Mr. Francois Hougaard. You and him were firing shotguns, am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
Then there were cameras rigged, one behind you and one to the side, for you to see what the effect of that firearm on a watermelon would be. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
So you knew this, you took part in all this rigging because there's a countdown for you to shoot.
That's correct, my lady.
What was the purpose of this whole incident?
My lady, the caliber of the firearm that the revolver was that I was firing with was a 50 caliber. It's, ammunition not often used in handguns. Despite Mr. Nall putting to me that it was a Black Talent ammunition, he's fired with my very same gun on the same range using my same ammunition, so he knows that it's not the Black Talent ammunition.
Tell me what, yeah.
The purpose of that exercise wasn't an exercise. We were spending the afternoon out on the range. We were a group of friends. Somebody suggested that we shoot a watermelon because of the caliber of the ammunition. As I said earlier, it was used for protection whilst walking trails in North America. That was the purpose of the firearm. The round is nearly, if not double, the size of the 9mm round that I had in my pistol, as Mr. Nall knows, because he did fire the same gun on the same range.
You wanted to see the effect on the watermelon.
I did, my lady, as did many of the other people that were.
And you then said words to the effect, it's a lot softer than brains. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
Referring to?
Referring to the watermelon, my lady.
But it's like a zombie stopper, referring to?
I guess referring to a firearm that would be used to stop a zombie, my lady.
So, am I correct in saying that you were shooting at the watermelon to see what the effect would be if you shoot somebody in the brain? Or not? Because that's an inference I'm drawing.
My lady, the day was spent on the shooting range. At the time, I enjoyed handling firearms. I enjoyed shooting. My shots, we used to shoot at pieces of wood. We used to shoot at targets. On that day, I shot at a watermelon. The comment I made afterwards was distasteful, but it was made in reference to a zombie, not to a human being. I don't see how you can link the two.
I'm going to ask you one or two more questions and then I'm moving on, but I think you're wrong. Why don't you just admit that you shot that firearm at the watermelon to see what the effect would be if you hit somebody in the head, in the brain?
I never said that comment before I shot the watermelon, so I don't know how Mr. Nall can make that comment to me, my lady.
I'm using your words. It's a lot softer than brains. That's a watermelon.
That was a comment I made after I shot the watermelon, my lady. I didn't at any point try and compare it to shooting a person in the head or a fictional character in the head before I shot it.
So the brains you referred to, whose brains would that have been?
My lady, as I said earlier, the context, it was made in a zombie, so...
You see, that I thought you would say that, therefore I'm going to read the whole sentence again. It's a lot softer than brains, but it's like a zombie stopper. It's like a zombie stopper. It's not, it is a zombie stopper, or zombie's brains. You're referring to something else. Do you want to respond to that?
No, my lady.
You don't have to. Now, Mr. Pistorius, I just want to know, your evidence you gave in the days that you were sitting there, is that what you can remember? Or is that a reconstruction?
It's what I remember, my lady.
I want to be fair. Is it not a reconstruction of everything you heard and you read, and that's why you gave the evidence?
My lady, there were many topics that we've spoken about. There was my upbringing, there was my athletic career, there was my faith, there was the night, the morning in question. I've been sitting here, I've been telling the truth. And some of the things we spoke about, obviously I wouldn't know about phone calls made from other people. So some of it is a reconstruction from what I've read, from the records, from what the state has furnished me with. So it's a mixture of what I remember. And in some of the topics and some of the points, it would be a reconstruction. If I look at the time, I can't remember how much time certain things took me that evening. But I can see from the times of the phone calls being made, from people's testimonies and statements, not out of just the couple that the state called, but out of the 100 and plus witnesses that the state said they had. I've read most of those and all of those statements. And that's how I've reconstructed some of the things I remember that I've spoken about myself. I've spoken about what I remember. And in the situations that I've spoken about in context of information that I have.
So there is an element of reconstruction in your evidence.
I guess there is an element of reconstruction.
So we will have to test what you reconstructed and what you can remember.
That's correct, my lady.
Now, can I see if we can narrow it down? The evening of, since you fell asleep on the evening of 13 February, until you shot and killed Reva, is there any reconstruction or not?
No, my lady.
You would have to speak a little
louder. I beg your pardon. From the time I went to sleep to the time that I took Reva's life, there was no reconstruction. Afterward, there were some points that I don't remember. On that evening, I don't recall calling security or speaking to Mr. Baba. I don't recall switching on the light in the bathroom. I don't recall parts of me carrying Reva downstairs.
So, let us just get an answer to this. I just want to know, from the time you fell asleep to the time that you shot and killed Reva, is there reconstruction of the scene or not?
There was no reconstruction of the scene.
You did?
In a physical sense, there was no reconstruction of anything in my house.
Reconstruction of your evidence? Taking into account other evidence in giving a version, did you do that?
Please just repeat that.
Did you take into account other evidence to form your version for the period?
My lady, I think it's important to state now that I furnished the court at my bail hearing with my version of what happened. My version's never changed. I knew that, and I said that version before I knew any of the evidence that would be compiled against me. I attended my story to my counsel. They compiled the bail transcript, the bail statement. My story hasn't changed since then. Even I granted in the bail, there are some aspects that I spoke to my counsel with that they didn't include in my bail. The bails, I didn't know, had to be an exhausted document. At the time of my bail, I wanted to give evidence. My counsel told me that I wasn't stable at the time and I wouldn't be able to cope with the giving of evidence. But I wrote my version of what happened that night. And nothing has changed. There hasn't been... State's case has changed many times. There hasn't been anything that they've given to me that has made me change what I said in those first couple of days.
Mr. Pistorius, with respect and through the court, you've been afforded an opportunity to give evidence. Don't you just want to listen to the question and answer the question?
Beg your pardon, my lady.
Let us just answer the question. I know you want to say a lot of things, and it's interesting. You're arguing, you're not answering. Why are you arguing and not answering?
I'm sorry, my lady.
I'm not sorry. The sorry doesn't answer the question of why. The question is why. Sorry is not an answer to why. Why are you arguing and not answering?
I think with respect, my lady, the difficulty in the question was there are other things. You make it so wide. If he puts to him a certain aspect and say, is that reconstruction or is that what you remember? Then I can understand. But once the witness is confronted with other things, then you must expect a long answer because you try to cover whatever other things may include or not include. So I think if the question is put differently, to say, this is what I say to you, can you tell me, is that reconstructed or real? And then we won't have what we've seen.
With utmost respect, my lady.
Just what? 1 minute. 1 minute. Mr. Rue, I'm not quite sure I understand the objection.
My lady, the question put to Mr. Pistorius was, there are other things. What was reconstructed, what not? We don't know what the other things is. If it's put pertinently, what do you say about A? Was A reconstructed or is that your independent memory? Then he can answer. But the moment you ask a question about other things, then the witness will answer as widely as possible. And all I'm asking that the question must be put to the point and say, what do you say about A? Was that reconstructed or independent memory? B, C. But to use the word other things, that's wide. It's very difficult for a witness to know what it is.
Well, I think the witness should say, I don't quite understand the question.
Yes, of course, my lady, but
yes.
He's still a lay person, and it's my duty to stand up and maybe sometimes from a legal perspective bring that to your attention. I agree with that, but it's also my duty to bring certain aspects to your attention.
Yes, thank you.
With respect, my lady, I expect lots of objections. Lady, I couldn't have put the question clearer. And I never used the word other things. That you use other evidence to create your version. And I also said between the time you went to bed and the time you shot her. My lady, I can't do it anyway else. I asked the court to allow me to proceed with this question.
Yes, please proceed. But the witness has already said when you said why, don't you answer the question? He gave you an answer.
Yes.
Yes.
As a court, please.
He said sorry.
Yeah.
That was the answer.
I agree.
Yes.
May I just ask, I'll carry on, my lady, with respect. Now, perhaps I just didn't get it with all the objections. Mr. Pistorius, did you not take anything else into account that you read and or heard for your version during the period when you went to bed and the time you shot and killed Reed?
No, I didn't, my lady.
You didn't. Okay. And your answers are very interesting. I take it that you know the bail application very well. Am I right?
I've read through the bail application a couple of times, my lady. At the time that my counsel...
You have to pick up your voice a little bit.
I beg your pardon.
Yes.
At the time that the bail application was brought to me during my bail, I was at the Brooklyn police station. I was very emotional. My counsel brought my statement to me. They read it to me. I wasn't able to read it, and I signed it. Everything that was in there was the truth. My version hasn't changed since then. I have read it a couple of times. I obviously don't want to try and remember the nights more than I have to. I read it the day before yesterday. I read my bail statement again. So it's not very well known to me, but I do know what I said there, and it is truth.
And you also know what you said in your plea explanation.
I won't be able to recite it, my lady.
But when counsel read it out, the court asked you if you agree with it, and you agreed with the contents of your plea explanation.
That's correct, my lady.
And it was discussed with you before it was drafted and agreed upon. All right? By counsel.
That is correct, my lady.
You now said that there are certain things in your bail application that counsel did not put in. What was that?
I cannot think of... if I think off the top of my head, it would be Reva speaking to me as I sat up in bed. It would be phoning Mr. Baba, which I don't remember. Amongst, I guess there would be a lot of things, my lady. The statement I made for the bail purposes was not of every minor detail that I told my counsel, and it was explained that it didn't have to be either. It was there for the purpose of the bail hearing.
I've got that. But I'm still asking you. You said there's certain things in there that counsel did not put. So I've got two. I've got that Reva spoke to you and you couldn't remember phoning Baba. What else can you remember? That should have been in there, that's not?
I cannot think of anything at the moment, my lady.
But nothing that's in it that one can read in your affidavit for the bail application is untrue.
My bail application, my statement was truthful, my lady.
Now, and your evidence in court was also true.
That's correct, my lady.
Then, did you put the fans onto the balcony, or just in the door with the one leg on the balcony?
My lady, the fans are different. They're not the same. The one is a tripod standing fan. It's got three legs, tripod. It's a stainless steel fan. It's about waist height. I put the one leg out onto the tiles of the balcony, and I put two of the legs on inside the room. So the fan was more or less in the middle of the doors. The floor fan I put in between the two legs of the standing fan, so it would have been slightly forward, so it would have been on the carpet in the bedroom.
To retrieve them, you never went outside. You were inside your room and you just brought them back in.
That's correct, my lady.
You never went onto the balcony.
I didn't go onto the balcony to retrieve them, my lady.
Yeah. And so you were never on the balcony when you heard noises in the bathroom?
No, I was at the amplifier when I heard the noise in the bathroom, my lady.
Now, if someone would say that you went onto the balcony to fetch the fans, that would not be true.
I beg your pardon, my lady.
If somebody would say that you went onto the balcony to fetch the fans, to bring the fans in, that would not be true.
If somebody said I went onto the balcony to fetch the fans, that wouldn't be true, my lady.
Would not be true.
It would not be true, that's correct.
And if somebody would say that whilst on the balcony bringing in the fans you heard a noise in the bathroom, that would not be true.
That would not be true, my lady.
Apart from being true, it would be difficult to hear a voice in the bathroom from the balcony.
The question Mr. Null asked me, my lady, was noises. I heard one noise from the amplifier, and what he put to me is voices. No, I didn't hear any voices. I heard one noise.
But what I'm asking you is, if you were on the balcony, would it have been difficult to hear a noise in the bathroom?
I'm not sure, my lady.
Okay. But you didn't?
I was at the amplifier when I heard the window open, my lady.
I know what your version is. We're still on the balcony. Could you not follow it? We're on the balcony. You did not hear, whilst on the balcony, a noise in the bathroom.
I was never on the balcony, my lady.
Now, I've got a difficulty, and that is that, in fact, you said you went onto the balcony to bring the fan in. Did you not say that?
What I said in my, if I can give me a copy of my bail transcript, I'll gladly read it. What I meant was...
Why referring to your bail?
Because I'd like to see it in front of me, my lady.
How do you know that I'm referring to your bail?
That's what I understood from...
How would you understand that from my question?
Ma'am, it's what I interpreted from Mr. Null ask.
Why? Why would you do that?
I'm not sure. That's what I interpreted.
You have to tell the court why you would interpret it as coming from your bail. You're sitting there, Mr. Pistorius, arguing, thinking of evidence. You're not answering questions. That is the danger of your evidence.
My lady, there's no danger in my evidence. I haven't lied. I'm asking simply where it says, or where somebody said, Mr. Null put to me that if somebody saw me on the balcony,
I never
then
said.
he said...
Are you not? Is that what you heard? That I said somebody saw you on the balcony?
What I heard was, if I'm mistaken, then I'm mistaken. What I heard Mr. Null put to me earlier was, if somebody had seen me on the balcony.
No, I don't. You see, Mr. Pistorius, with leave of the court, Mr. Pistorius, please answer the questions. Don't argue the case. If you just answer the questions, we'll get somewhere. If you argue or think about other evidence, you will get into trouble.
My lady, I'm trying to answer the question that Mr. Null is asking me about being on the balcony. When I got the fans in, I was holding... I beg your pardon. I was holding the handle of the door. The balcony, the tripod fan's leg was on the balcony. I first brought the floor fan in, and then I held the door and I brought the tripod fan in from the door.
You see, page 64, and I'll make it available for you. It is the white file to your right, to your left. The top one. That one.
Page 64 of the record.
Of the bail application.
Oh, the bail application.
Yes. Yeah, that is Exhibit D, my lady. It's a full file.
Oh, we don't have it here. There's too much on this bench, so it's
Yes,
not here.
no, I know it's too much to carry, my lady.
Yes.
I would read it out, and I'm sure Mr. Roux would follow it. And if it becomes an issue, I will make sure we fetch the files from you.
Okay, you may proceed.
Do you have page 64, sir?
I do, my lady.
Now, if you look at line 20, let's start at 19. I'll read it, and if you just follow. During the early mornings of 14 February 2013, I woke up, went onto the balcony to bring the fan in.
That's correct, my lady.
Because there are two problems there, isn't it?
I see that it says I went onto the balcony to bring the fan in. I agree with Mr. Null, my lady, that the fan was partly on the balcony, but I didn't go onto the balcony to bring the fan in. I don't know where the second problem would be with...
What about fans? In your whole of your bail statement, there's only reference to one fan. Am I right?
If we're talking in reference with the sentence that was read to me, my lady, it says, I went onto the balcony to bring the fan in. As I said earlier, the one fan's leg was on the balcony and the other fan was between the two legs of the tripod fan, and it was on the carpet. So that wasn't outside. I brought the fan that was on the balcony inside.
You see, I asked a different question. You know the bail statement? There's only reference to one fan in the bail statement. Am I right?
If you give me time to read through it, my lady?
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll
Read.
check. So what I can say here is that this talks about bringing in the fan. There was one fan that was not inside the house.
Read. See if you can see another fan in your statement.
My lady, I don't have my full bail transcript here. This is just extracts of my bail transcript.
It's a full thing from when it started, from when your statement started. Your affidavit is read into the record, sir, from page 58 to where it starts. Do you, let's carry on. Do you want to read the whole thing? I'll keep this question till after lunch. I'll ask you other things, and if you would read your bail statement during lunch, would that be fine?
Yes, sir.
Good. Because I want to refer you to something else, and that is page 117. Can you go there?
Is it of the same bail application?
It's of the same bail application, my lady. You see? Do you have it with you?
I do, my lady.
My lady, I'll be reading from line 11. It is Mr. Roo cross-examining Mr. Botha. He got up, he said, went onto the balcony. Oh, that's me. That's me. That's me. I'm leading onto the balcony to bring the fan in. You see that?
I do, my lady.
And I go on. So he was there on the balcony and he heard a noise in the bathroom. And he realized there was someone in the
He
bathroom.
doesn't say that he was in a balcony and he heard a noise in the bathroom. That sentence is there. He doesn't say that at all. That he was in the balcony when he heard the noise.
I'm reading the record. Mr. Roo is wrong. So he was here on the balcony and he heard a noise in the bathroom.
If he says that that's what he put to Mr. Botha, that's correct. If he says that's in the bail application affidavit, that's not so. It must just be that distinction must be made.
Yes, my lady.
If it's a wrong statement made by Mr. Nell in the bail application, so be it, but then he must, in all fairness, say that does not come from the bail affidavit.
Oh, it doesn't come from the affidavit.
Yes,
Not
my
from the
lady,
affidavit.
Mr. Nell can read it. I don't want to interfere, but he can read.
Yes.
To
No,
say
I want to be
that's
clear. That's very important. Thank
Now
you.
that is, but it's clear from the record. It's me leading the evidence, and I said that's what he said, and Mr. Botha agreed. But that was never taken up with Mr. Botha on the bail application.
No, can you read that again? I just want
I'll
to
do
make
that,
sure I
my lady.
understand. Yes.
I'm leading a witness.
Yes.
I say. He got up, he said he went onto the balcony, to bring the fan in and close the sliding doors, the blinds and the curtains. Then I quote from the affidavit. I heard a noise in the bathroom. So he was here on the balcony and he heard a noise in the bathroom and realized that somebody was in the bathroom. That's what he said. And Mr. Botha then said, that's what he said. But that's not your version today, is that so?
No, but it's not his version today. It was not his version then. I think in all fairness, he must just read what was the version then. Because the imputation is that then that was his version, but today it's different. And I invite Mr. Nell to read the bail application, the affidavit, to see what he said, whether it was ever said that he was in the balcony when he heard the noise.
I will do so. But I will read the bail affidavit. Page 64. You said, during early morning hours of 14 February 2013, I woke up, went onto the balcony to bring the fan in and closed the sliding doors, the blinds and the curtains. I heard a noise in the bathroom and realized that somebody was in the bathroom. Is that what you said?
Oh, sir, I've just turned the page, my lady, if I can just
Okay.
read this.
Read it, please. you see that?
That's correct, my lady.
But there's something wrong with that statement today.
I don't see anything wrong with my statement today.
Except that you didn't go onto the balcony.
I don't follow what Mr. Nell's asking me, my lady. I'm
I
sorry.
think I've dealt with it, but we'll go through it again. It's just past 1 minute. I'll just ask this one more question. It reads, during the early morning hours of 14 February 2013, I woke up, went onto the balcony to bring the fan in. That's not true.
I concede, my lady. I didn't go onto the balcony. I picked the fan up, which was on the balcony, and I brought the fan in.
Lady, may we take the lunch adjournment?
Court will adjourn.
You interpreted Arabia's question.